Hola, soy Litzy La Bomba Dilene, boxeadora profesional de México, y estás viendo el show de Todd Atkins, en donde verás y escucharás a grandes talentos del boxeo. No te lo puedes perder.
All right, this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Derek Galanis. And it's been a while since I did some videos, but it's always good to have Derek back on. And I want to kind of do a show with him. I've been kicking around where we would talk about the main event of the UFC events, as they pass. And so this one, we're going to talk a little bit about Sean O'Malley, Merab uh, Divashvili. And Derek, I kind of wanted to just give you a chance to kind of tell people who you are if people haven't seen you on my show before.
Sure, guys. So I'm a lifelong martial artist. I also come from a criminal family, documented Gambino Associates by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. But the whole time I was in my criminal life, I did martial arts, just like Tommy Karate, I guess, was probably more involved than I was actually. But I wrote two books. I wrote Greed and Fear of the Galanis Crime Family and My Life of Crime, and I wrote a Warrior of the Light on my travels in combat sports. And of course they intersect each other a little, right? It's only one life, but yeah, there it is. That's who I am, guys.
So I wanted to kind of, maybe I'll kind of say a little bit, but I wanted to let you give your initial thoughts of the match between O'Malley and Rob. But before we do, kind of like for me, this match has happened hundreds of times since UFC one. And it's usually the same way where the striker has small windows of time to win, and if he doesn't win within those windows, then he just gets absolutely dominated. So I was wanting to see kind of what you thought of it.
Yeah, well, Todd, you're taking it back to the history. You're absolutely right. And initially there was a time when, people were starting to think boxing and everything else was all worthless, right? It was first the Gracies and then the wrestlers came in shortly thereafter, right? And it was grapplers heaven. Martial arts became about grappling or what have you. Yeah, this is a modern incarnation of that for sure. I saw a lot of openings for both. Sadly, O'Malley obviously didn't take them. Davashili obviously fought his fight, and that's the thing. If you're able to force your will on your opponent to fight you how you want them to fight you, you look like a stud. And that's what Davashili looked like. Now, I will say, Todd, I want to make this comment. We'll delve deeper into it, but those two judges who had about a 1 point fight, I could see it. I would give out O'Malley the fifth and maybe the third, not in any way a dominant fifth or third like Davashili had on him and the rest of it. But you could see how he could have stolen those rounds too. So yeah, there it is.
But I think it's difficult on the wrestler because a lot of the maybe newer fans or fans who've only been around for, since the last few years, maybe perhaps, wrestlers have had a lot of their weapons taken away over the years because they've always been dominant. But, like the knees on the ground, the headbutts, things like this that wrestlers used heavily. And those things were taken away, and they still had to find ways to win. So a lot of the guys that play the top position game, like Marab, the rules have limited them, almost like the NFL has limited people's ability to play defense. It's catered to the offense.
Yeah, and I see your point with that, Todd. And maybe that's why Davashili gave him about 6 kisses, right? Like, maybe there's a certain amount of frustration. But remember, so I can tell you this, Todd, because of my criminal life, I've been in a lot of street fights. And what usually ends a street fight is soccer kicks, right? Some guy gets taken down. There's no wrestling in street fights, and I find that very interesting, right? Some guy gets taken down, and then it's launch away. You start kicking, and if you get his head, he's not getting up again. I guarantee you. I don't care how tough he is. That brain gets scrambled. So, that got taken away. I think that hurt Shogun Hua really badly when he made his transition from Pride to UFC. You want a real street fight? You got to allow soccer kicks too, man. Forget just the headbutts. I mean, headbutts they're a novelty. My older brother Jason was the headbutt king in Tijuana, Mexico. He headbutted more people than I can remember, in addition to cracking him over the head with the bottle. But I guess as a sport, man, you got to have rules, so there it is.
But yeah, I think it's kind of like the fans are putting them in a position where they don't want them to win. You know, these newer fans, they don't like this. You can win by a decision. He doesn't have to finish his opponent, and I think that's something people don't understand. Not everyone has those finishing intangibles. They think everyone has that. Not everyone does, and there's a reason you can win by decision. It's in the rules.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, you're not going to stop fans booing Sweet Pea Whitaker, even though he was a boxer of a generation, right? Like, you're not going to stop that stuff. Fans want blood. And that's why people think Mike Tyson was still the best fighter that ever lived, right? They love that blood. For 2-3 rounds, Tyson was very, very dangerous. After that, he would use, maul and grab tactics to force his opponent into submission. And if they actually fought back, they beat him. And that's proven over and over again. So he certainly wasn't the best fighter ever, right? But fans know what they like, and fans like blood. And this goes back to bread and circus and gladiator days, man. Nothing fun about the lay and pray, Todd. I mean, I know it's taken on a different vision in our modern times, but in the old times it was double leg takedown, lay on top of him, And did George St. Pierre beat BJ Penn that way? It seemed like it.
Yeah, but I think when the rule changes start in November, where you can kind of knee the head even if the guy puts his hand down. So I think that's going to help wrestlers a lot because the only way to avoid that is to basically take yourself down to all fours, which leaves you kind of vulnerable to other things. So in a way, I think the rules might improve to help wrestlers be a little bit more exciting, if they want to say that.
Yeah, little by little, man, we got rid of that 12-6 elbow too, right? That ridiculous rule. So yeah, it's getting better. Look, people forget MMA is a new sport. I know it's been around 30 years now, 30 plus, but it's still a relatively new sport. So, we're gonna work out the kinks and see what works. So yeah, it's cool.
What'd you take from what O'Malley did?
So, number one, Todd, and I feel bad that he doesn't advertise it, but from the way O'Malley moves and from the way O'Malley kicks from the outside, he's very clearly a Taekwondo guy or karate guy. And, that's next to my heart, man. That's what I am, at my root. And I know why they don't publicize it. It's not cool. It doesn't go with the tattoos and the rainbow hair and the braids and all that. But at the end of the day, that's where he got those kicking techniques. That's the only place you learn stuff like that. And it's what makes O'Malley such a conundrum for most fighters, because he kicks like that. And what do most MMA guys do? They learn a little Muay Thai, they learn a little boxing, and that's their limit on stand-up. And that's the equation O'Malley brings. And I would give to you, his last best chance to win that fight was that front kick in the final round, right? Merab was hurt, absolutely. And it makes me sad that O'Malley didn't try for that earlier. And now I know why he did. He's worried about the takedown, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, man. If you're going to lose the fight anyway, you might as well go down swinging with you offering your best hand as well. So I think it's probably his coach got into his head about that. And I think it was a bad decision. The other thing is, and this is very obvious, you can't go one at a time, especially when you're throwing punches. Combos are everything. And I'm not saying they have to be, 8-punch combos. How about 2 or 3? O'Malley was sharpshooting with 1. And that's why he didn't really have success, man. I was sad to see him go out like that.
Maybe talk about Merab's the things he did in the fight that you liked or didn't like.
So the thing about a guy like Merab is his wrestling is so good. And I don't even know where that comes from. Is that freestyle wrestling or Greco, or is that Sambo of some kind? But whatever it is, it works really well for MMA. And because he's really good at that, he's able to brawl as well and launch shots that get a guy like O'Malley. And when you combine your strengths with some of your deficiencies, you can have great success in MMA. And that's what Merab did. He used the grappling to scare Sean off, make Sean not launch offense. And then he would do those clubbing, right and left hands inside when he got there. I mean, I think he outstruck O'Malley, 3-1 or something like that, maybe more. So, Merab had the perfect game plan for O'Malley. But I'll be honest with you, just like most of Mike Tyson's opponents, I think O'Malley was beaten before he got to the ring with that game plan.
Plus, the other thing that I think fans miss is the fighter on the bottom has some responsibility to change what's happening, and they don't seem to accept that part.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, it took a while for me to understand the rules. Like, if I have you up against the fence, right? I'm just laying on you. Guess what? I'm winning. If you're in, if you're in, if you have me in guard, despite what Hoist taught us early on, you are losing, right? Like I'm on top of you, and now I got to advance. I know that, but bottom line is I'm winning that fight. And if you want to, put a thing of excellence there for who did that well that night. It was the co-main event and Alexis Grasso. I mean, she clearly got dominated, but I'll tell you what, she almost hit 3 or 4 submissions from the bottom. And Todd, that almost never happens anymore, brother, because people are so good. They know what's coming. This is not the Royce Gracie era. You're slippery. It's no gi. You know what I mean? There's no gi to hang on to. But the way Grasso threw those up against Shevchenko was really impressive, man. She still lost the fight, but that was working from the bottom for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to talk about how it seems like Dana White tried to downplay both of those people winning in the post-fight press conference. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about Dana, Todd. I mean, he says so many weird things, and the one thing you can know is there's usually an angle why he's saying it, right? Like Francis Ngannou is without consequence, he stinks. Well, yeah, it's because you're about to lose the guy, and he's going to make $20 million in boxing, and you convince all these followers of yours to go along with it. Dana says things for reasons, and he's almost in a position now. The megalomania is taking over, where he believes, his own hype, right? Like he believes the things he's saying when the reality is there's very clearly another motivation for that. I mean, I don't know what his thoughts were on that. It's weird. I've seen Dana call fights that were fun, bad fights. He gets things in his head about people. He obviously holds grudges very heavily. So I don't know what to say about him, man. He's just, he's a billionaire with, the world on, he's on top of the world. And so now he behaves like that.
Yeah, it's strange as a promoter to talk down your champions.
Well, Todd, this is a guy who took MMA, right, which was illegal, and John McCain's can outlaw it, human cockfighting, hired away Mark Ratner, got it legalized, and is on top of the world. Now the maniac has slap fight, and that's his own personal project. I mean, well, how do you get slap fight legalized? Like, what athletic talent is there in that? What convincing did you have to do? And I think that shows a lot about human nature, like that MMA took great difficulty to get licensed. But now, because the guy's a multi-billionaire, not quite in Dana's case, but you know what I mean. Now he can just say, well, yeah, we'll have slap fight, and this is okay. I mean, look, I'm not against slap fight. Do I think slap fight should be legal? Sure, just like I think drugs should be legal. But the idea, when you juxtapose it against commission letting something happen, like the UFC, it's almost ridiculous. It's non-comparable. Why not have gladiator fights at this point?
What do you think about him getting into boxing? I mean, I don't see how he's going to juggle all these hats, boxing and power slap and the UFC.
So I know he's got that Irish fighter he's very fond of, right? And that's great. Callum, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing Dana's going to have problems with, just because I know his personality already, is the very nature of boxing is you don't hold those guys very long, right? You got 4 or 5 fight contracts, but eventually they're going to test the water, especially now when it's not just Don King and Bob Arum. We got Eddie Hearn, we got Frank Warren. There's so many new guys. We got Oscar De La Hoya. You have the Duvas that are still hanging on. The guy Kovalev is the last fighter. So what's going to happen is people are going to leave, and Dana's going to get very, very bitter because he's used to having the upper hand with the UFC professional wrestling model he created. So I don't know how his personality is going to be able to react to that, because he's going to have to be a lot more sober, a lot more temperate, like you're talking about. Like, why is he bad-mouthing his fighters? Probably, Todd, because he's got total control of them. He controls every single one of them. Good luck when that's not the case anymore, like boxing. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a demolition derby with Dana's personality.
And it'd be hard for him to juggle all 3 of those things. He's going to have to give something up eventually.
I agree. I mean, but I think, when you have the kind of money Dana has, I'm not talking about his personal wealth. I'm talking about his cash flow from the businesses. You hire a lot of people to do a lot of things, and you're yes and no, and you can sit back there and be figureheadish. I mean, obviously that's what Bob Arum is now. He's in his 90s, right? So it's not like he's out there doing day-to-day work. So we'll see how he does with it. I think his intemperate behavior is going to be his downfall in boxing. But Oscar De La Hoya is kind of a nutball too. I mean, that's how those guys are, man. We'll see.
And what do you think as far as O'Malley? Do you think he can kind of close the wrestling gap? Because it's not just Merab. You got Umar out there and other guys. But where does he go from here?
Yeah, I mean, so Todd, it's very hard for fighters, and I think this is a bigger part of the fight than everything we've talked about until now. You got to really believe, like, hey, I'm the baddest man in the world. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter whether that's actually true. What has to be in your head is, I can beat this guy. And anybody who's done any real training for a while, I mean, the reality is fighting is all local. So if you're beating up really tough guys in your gym, I don't care how tough the guy is they bring in, you're going to have a shot against him. Of course, styles make fights, but O'Malley didn't put out like, hey, I'm the champ and you're going to have to deal with my kicks. You're going to have to deal with everything. He fought like a guy who was so scared of the takedown, and it nullified his own offense. But look, that having been said, O'Malley was lucky to be there, right? He got that gift against Peter Yan, which he didn't deserve. But, all kinds of fighters like O'Malley with charisma get gifts. And then he knocked out Aljo, which nobody can say anything about. He revenged against Chito Vera. So good for him. I mean, I'll tell you this, man, if he had let his offense go and gotten lucky, he'd be the Conor McGregor right now. I mean, Dana would start forgetting about Conor McGregor. It would be Sean O'Malley. As it is, I don't know if he's going to be able to dig his way back, because that's all mental stuff. They always say, like, fighting is 90% mental. Why? Because once you learn all the stuff you need to learn and you're in great condition, take for granted you're fighting in the UFC, you better be, then it's all mental. And it doesn't look like, do you remember in the fight with Jan, his corner goes, you see, you belong here. Well, that's a weird conversation to have at the upper echelon of the UFC, right? Like, did you guys not know that? I know the kid's from Montana, right? Fights out of Phoenix, but it seemed really, really strange. And I don't think he truly believes. Forget about his public persona. I don't think he believes in himself.
Yeah, I kind of get that impression too because of the people he tries to fight and the people he tries to avoid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anybody who gets a little bit below. And by the way, Todd, I'm not picking on O'Malley. Guess what? Everybody's different and we all have insecurities. You know what I mean? Like, so, of course, having an insecurity is okay. That's normal. And I think, the sociopath that thinks they can destroy everybody's, a lot more abnormal than the Sean O'Malley's. I think in some way we're all fighting that. George St. Pierre talks about it, right? He was terrified before he went into every fight,
But I think he was terrified of losing. I don't think he didn't believe in himself. St. Pierre, that is.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess St. Pierre obviously put in the work, but they say O'Malley does too, man. I think one thing with St. Pierre is he put in the work everywhere, right? He went to New York for jiu-jitsu and he moved around and he made sure that he got the best of everything. I don't know that's been the case with O'Malley. I think, and the reason the trainer said that in the Peter Yan fight, it was big fish, small pond. But honestly, all fighting's big fish, small pond, right? But you have to have enough belief in yourself that, guess what? We're in the same pond now, and I'm a big fish too. Let's fight it out. He was terrified of that takedown, man. It showed, and the results showed.
But also, like when he fought Chito Vera in his first title defense, yeah, Chito Vera beat him, but, at that point in time, there was no reason to want to fight him. There were a lot of guys out there that were good, and he purposely stayed away from those people, which kind of shows the lack of self-belief that you talk about.
No, without a doubt, man. I mean, but I get it. He wanted his vengeance against the guy he knew he could beat. He beat him. And Chito's a tough guy, man. I know he's not probably top 5 anymore, but he's still a tough guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just that might be harder for him to do now because unless the UFC just wants to give him some layups.
And they might, right? Like UFC knows how to protect their main guys, right? They're not totally boxing, because I would give that the boxing model is all about protecting your guys until you can't protect them anymore, like Anthony Joshua over the weekend, right? But yeah, they may do that. I think Dana really was counting on O'Malley to be the next Conor, but with this loss, man, I just don't see it. I think that's it. I mean, will he win some consequential fights? Maybe. But do I think he's got the chance to be Conor McGregor again? I don't.
Yeah, and it might be hard to pull out a layup for him this next time. I mean, because a lot of people are calling for him to fight Sandhagen, who I think would beat him.
Yeah, the problem with a guy like Sandhagen, and I relate to this because I'm a karate guy like O'Malley is, even if you won't admit it. Sandhagen's really long, and he's really Muay Thai-ish, right? With MMA too, right? But he's got that long style, and it's tough to sharpshoot that from O'Malley style. But I'd have to see it, man. They're probably both the same length, right? I mean, I'd love to see that fight, though. I think it'd be exciting. My guess is Sandhagen would try to take him down.
Yeah. Now, I kind of wanted to transition into this. Yeah, I think it'd be best to transition after we did this because people might wonder why we're just doing a show on that. But I kind of wanted to transition into this Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever, Sean Combs, indictment. And I wanted to let you kind of tell people why I would be talking to someone like you about this to start.
Well, I mean, first of all, I've had 2 federal indictments, right? I've spent 11 and a half years of my life, I say behind the wall. Okay, I did 2 years in a camp, guys, but the rest of it was behind the wall. I know the feds really well. I know how they indict people. The New York Southern District is the rock star of the Fed world, right? And it's no coincidence that they brought Mr. Puff Daddy there to indict him. It's obviously because they want to lay up with their own, as if they don't have enough advantages already. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you want to talk to me because I've been indicted twice, spent 11 and a half years in prison, and kind of know what's coming for Puff Daddy.
Maybe just kind of start to talk about that a little bit, from what we saw to what you think.
So, Todd, I've met some guys in my life, and everybody tell you the feds are impossible to beat, right? Well, I've met some guys in my travels, including my own brother, Jason, my older brother, that have beaten the feds or at least gotten away with things, right? And the odd thing happens when that happens. They think that they're smarter than everybody. They think everybody's dumb. And they think that it's going to continue like that for them, right? My brother was certainly like that. He walked right into, almost a 20-year bid. I write about Pius Eidelman. Pius was a friend I made in Sandstone prison when I was there. He was a heroin dealer. He won his first case. Sure enough, went right back to heroin dealing. Like, yeah, I'm smarter than them. What can they? Well, the reality is, you do that with the feds, eventually they're going to get you no matter what. The only chance you have is to move out of the country or stop doing what you're doing. But the disease of that ego is I'm better than everyone else. I'm smarter. I'm Puff Daddy, right? In Puff Daddy's case, and this is the real amazing thing for me, Todd, how many murders did he get out of, man? I mean, he got out of the Tupac murder, right? They got those gang members that were offered money for it, telling on him. But, I know the way the feds play that. And really Vegas PD too. Like, well, they're gang members. What credibility do they have? Well, if a Fed unit in Nevada had picked that up, it didn't matter. Fed court's a lot different than state court. So, he skated on the Tupac murder. He skated on that shooting at that nightclub with Shine and J Lo. And God only knows what anyone was thinking about letting him out of that, right? Like Shine had to take 10 years for him. And Shine's now in Belize, and he's a politician there. And he's like, yeah, Puff Daddy hung me out to dry. I was his protege. I was 20 years old. He used me. And what happens to guys like that? They start thinking like, I'm P. Diddy. Nobody can mess with me. Look at me. Well, P. Diddy finally is going to have his day in court, it looks like. And that indictment, Todd, that it's a mean indictment. And it's an indictment for today's world. That sex trafficking is the favorite indictment of the feds right now. So he's in trouble, man.
Another reason I think he got off of that nightclub shooting is because there was rumored that Jennifer Lopez had brought the firearm, and I think when you have two powerful people, they're wanting to let someone else take the fall for it rather than these two.
Oh, you bet, Todd. And by the way, I didn't hear that, but just the fact that J-Lo was there and could have been implicated, right? Like that was an obvious laydown. Yeah. And so they let these two guys go. This poor 20-year-old kid's got to go 10 years upstate New York. But that's the justice system, man. That's how we do it. It's a shame. I mean, how do you justify giving me the same time as my father in our last case? Father's been a known criminal, organized criminal since the 60s. It's very weird how we judge people and whatnot. A lot of it is charm. In my dad's case, obviously, people think, oh, I really like this guy. But in the case of Puff Daddy and J-Lo, it's star power, right? People get like overwhelmed by the celebrity of who they are.
Yeah, people that worked for him said, Lopez didn't come to the club with him. He called her and had her bring that firearm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
well,
because they were dating at the time.
Yeah, I remember. Wow. Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me, Todd. I'd never heard it before, but yeah, man. I mean, that's how it works at the top. Listen, I wrote about my own book. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton met with Tommy Gambino in a Washington parking garage, right? Hunter Biden was in business with my brother and father. It doesn't matter. They just let those guys skate, because they're not going to arrest Tommy over Bill and Hillary, right? Nobody's putting Bill and Hillary in jail. So, they're not going to put Hunter in jail over my brother. So yeah, man, J-Lo and P. Diddy, lucky as can be.
But I mean, it's rumored that he has a lot of video of powerful people. Not just musicians and, like TV celebrities, but other people.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I'm sure those parties were the place to go for the rich and famous, right?
Right.
Sex parties with hot women that you can do whatever. I mean, I get that. It right now. I mean, the funny thing is, 20 years ago, nobody would have thought about sex trafficking charges for that type of thing. It's a rich guy throwing a party having prostitutes. Who cares? And if he bullied his girlfriend and doing anything, what's the big deal? But the political climate constantly changes, right? Suddenly, we look at those things in a different way. And Pete Diddy's going to pay the price for it. He thought he was untouchable, and it's kind of funny. Like Tupac was a murder. There was a shooting at the club. You'd think those are more serious crimes than bullying his girlfriend and having sex with male prostitutes. But there's no sense to the justice system, man. It's, here and there, and there's statute of limitations and, yeah, all kinds of stuff we already talked about, but cover-ups and the reasons why.
But do you think that they'll bring other people into this like they didn't do with Jeffrey Epstein?
No. I think they're going to let Puff Daddy take the fall, just like they did with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I think the trial is going to be real muted. I mean, look, man, we know that Trump and Clinton were both hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. We know that Trump had massages from one of Jeffrey Epstein's underage girls. And let's not fool ourselves on what Bill Clinton was doing on that plane. But, the scales of justice, man, are weighed differently for the famous like that. I think they're going to, lock Diddy up for a good while, and everybody else is going to skate.
You really think so? When they have all that evidence on, the
Man,
feds gathered all that up. The feds have all that video evidence.
Todd, they got it against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. They've got to get. I mean, you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in MCC? Come on, man.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's he died because Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and all the powerful people of the world wanted him dead. They didn't want him talking. And talk is one thing Jeffrey Epstein is very, very good at, right? He was about to start talking, and they silenced that. Did you see the interview? It was probably 4 or 5 months ago, where an interviewer was interviewing Trump, and he goes, "Are you going to open up the case on JFK?" "Oh, yes, absolutely." "Are you going to open up the case on 9/11? "Oh, yes, absolutely." "Are you going to open up the case on Jeffrey Epstein?" He goes, no, because I think there might be a lot of lies in there." "Oh, really, Donald?" On that one, we're not going to open up the truth, So, yeah, man, it's just, that's how it is. I mean, it's funny because things hide in plain sight now, right? Like, this is not something I'm making up. This is not a conspiracy theory. People know it, and they still do nothing. But that's the world we live in, man. Much different than when you and I were growing up, Todd.
Well, I think people knew about this too, but for some reason, eventually became too much to hide.
Well, when people start complaining, and I'll give this to you too, Todd. Look, I'm not making what Puff Daddy did good. He's obviously a megalomaniac, and he's obviously a sociopath. But what happens is, someone like Cassie decides, okay, dude, I've had enough of you. Now I'm going to flip everything we've been doing together on its head, and you're screwed. You notice he paid her $30 million in about an hour and a half. I mean, you can imagine, right? Like what she's got on him. And my father, the arch criminal, would call that a bait and switch. Meaning, Cassie can sit there and play, victim, hey, this, that, hey, that. And then one day, guess what? She's $30 million richer. And the guy that tormented her is going to jail for the rest of his life. So, man, there's, when you try to weigh these things on the scales of justice, a lot of times it's simply public opinion. And right now, one thing about sex trafficking that's very hot, how you treat women is a very hot issue. Pimps who used to get, a whole hump pimp charge now get sex trafficking charges. It's a whole new world, man. And the world evolves like that constantly, especially criminal justice. I mean, listen, man. I mean, do you remember a time when marijuana would get you a life sentence? I knew guys doing life on marijuana.
Yeah. For some reason, I think some other people might be dragged into it because they're not politicians. They're musicians. They're, people like that, comedians, the people I've heard of at least. They're not necessarily politicians.
Well, let's be honest. I know it crosses over a little bit, but the crowd Jeffrey Epstein was keeping was much more the elite than what Puff Daddy's hanging out with, baseball players and and rappers and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I see your point. I could see that happening. At the same time, the fence tend to narrow in. Who knows? One thing we may see out of this, Todd, no one's talking about it yet. They say Puff Daddy's been an informant for years, which I believe. You think he's not going to start talking now?
I don't know. It's interesting because people thought like Ghislaine Maxwell was going to talk, and she didn't.
Because they didn't let her, Todd. They say, no, we don't want to hear anything. You think my brother didn't try to talk about Hunter Biden? The Southern District of New York said, no, we're not interested. So, and my brother's lawyer said back, look, we're not looking for any time off. We're just trying to tell you how the case unfolded. No, we're not interested. And they do that,
Yeah, they wouldn't let her get anything out. That's what you think?
No, I know. It's not what I think, man. That's how it goes. Like, so one thing about our criminal justice system is people think that judges have power. And I'm not saying judges don't have power. They do. But a judge is essentially a guy that's got almost a lifetime appointment. He's getting paid a huge amount of money, and he sits up there and he arbitrates a case. The people who have the power in criminal cases in the United States of America, especially in the Fed system, are the prosecutors. How they want to show you, how they want to coach you. That's why P. Diddy's lawyers really thought they were going to get him off. And they really did it. I mean, you could make the argument that I just made. Hey, Cassie's this girl he took from nothing, made her into something. Now this ingrate's flipping on him, wanting to whine and cry about the stuff she did consensually. But the prosecutors didn't buy it, And I get it. Why? I mean, Puff Daddy's had near miss after near miss, and he's gotten by. Well, the bell tolls for everyone eventually.
Plus, that video from the hotel of him beating her probably didn't help him.
Oh, I'm sure it didn't, brother. I mean, that was worse than anything my older brother used to do.
So it's kind of hard to talk that one away.
Yeah.
It kind of made her stories more believable,
Yeah, video. So my ecstasy case was untriable because they had videotape of me in the lab. Videotape doesn't lie, Todd. That's it. It's the end of the case, man.
Like when we bring up Ghislaine Maxwell, what's to stop her from talking to some reporter while she's in prison, like many people have, or sending a letter out to somebody and said, yeah, I dealt with this person, that person. She could do that.
Yeah, I could see her doing it, man. I mean, look, I've done it, but I want you to notice something, Todd. How much have they silenced me? I mean, I did get my brother before Congress, right? I made enough noise to make that happen, but I'm like a non-entity. Has any news like it's only podcasters like yourself that have me on. They don't talk about it. They're able to just silence it. It's kind of amazing the way the world works today. My guess is Ghislaine will reach out to someone like Tucker Carlson eventually, and Tucker's been covering that pretty heavily. He knows Epstein was murdered. Tucker gets it, and at least on that point. I'm not saying he gets it about everything, but he gets it about that. So yeah, I imagine she will. But listen, man, it's weird. Like Felix Gallardo stayed quiet in Mexico for like 30 years, didn't he? I mean, I guess he wanted his life, right? But that seems kind of odd, right? For someone to remain mum. When you have the political power, you control the media, you're powerful.
Actually, I was going to talk about that because what Diddy reminds me of is those guys, like Pablo Escobar, Felix Gallardo. These guys had everything, and they had governments that would have protected them had they not gone too far. But for some reason, they insisted on going too far. Gallardo, he had Kiki Camarena killed. Pablo Escobar blew up that airliner just because he wanted to get one person on the plane. These things, they went too far when they really didn't need to.
Yeah, man, ego. I mean, that's it's a section of my book, man. It's like why my father and brother shut me out, why they didn't want to pay me for what I did, why the scrap pack, says, oh, he couldn't fight. I mean, it's ego, man. People are really weird. You push on their ego a little bit and make them feel insecure, and they push back hard. It's just the way it is. And those guys become megalomaniacs through their success. They're on top of the world, and what's next? What's next? Same thing for Epstein, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, like Gallardo had people telling him, you should let this guy go. He
Well,
doesn't know anything, and he just insists on going further.
well, I mean, Todd, the way the Narcos series portrayed it, and I could see it being true. I wasn't there. I don't know. I don't have any inside information. But the way they portrayed that is Gallardo did not want Camareno kidnapped.
Right.
But they did it based on that Mexican politician. And then Gallardo told them after they did it, let this guy go. Bring him back where you found him, please, right now. No. And by the way, did that Mexican politician ever pay a price? Well, okay, maybe he lost office. But guess what? He didn't go to jail. Right, he's free. Gallardo took the fall for that, and that's I think going to be the case with Diddy too. Diddy's going down. Epstein's going down. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, they're not going down.
Plus, I think some other guys that he worked with in the DEA thought he was going to blow the whistle on them.
Oh, you bet, man. You think they had to shoot Pablo Escobar? He was by himself on a rooftop. And they riddled him with bullets, man. Why? I think the shoot to kill order was in.
Yeah, of course. Why not? He deserved it, though, so that wasn't really. He had gone too far. When you take down an airliner, you're not going to be able to just. Here I am,
Look, listen. I agree with you, man. But so we have to get to the numb of why he was really killed, though. Was he killed because he deserved it, or was he killed because he would have talked like you're talking about? You know what I mean? Like. Well, why was he really killed? I mean, he was in league with presidents of Colombia. We're not talking about a politician. We're talking about the president.
Yeah, but once you shoot at them, it's game over at that point. They're not going to stop until they shoot you.
In theory, sure, I get it. And maybe he went out like a cowboy, like he would have wanted to. Like, hey, I'm not going to live in a cage. Screw you guys.
Yeah, but Diddy's very comparable to that because he was protected. In a way. He was protected by society, maybe, or the Hollywood circle. And he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yes, absolutely, man. That's how I started it, man. That it's the guys who get away with crimes that think they're untouchable. Oh, look at me. Look what I did. They don't ever go, oh, thank God for that. Let me turn my life around. No. That's what none of them do, man. They go, yeah, I'm smarter than that dumbass. You think my brother wasn't sitting there going, yeah, my dumb brother had to take a drug case. The truth is I took the drug case for him because I loved him. But, megalomaniacs, man, they love no one but themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy, like how that, and all the stuff with like Justin Bieber too. I saw a video where it looked like he was patting him down for a wire. I don't know if you
I
saw that.
saw it. I
Like
saw it.
that, how that never came to light before is kind of wild.
I'll tell you what, I had a friend who used to hang out in one of the strip clubs. It wasn't one of my favorites in San Francisco, but it was Gold Club. He was a boxing trainer guy, and he was there the night Bieber came in. Bieber was out of his mind on ecstasy and everything else. And, they cornered him away, which is only to say that Bieber's life was affected by Puff Daddies, right? Like, obviously, he went to a lot of those early freak offs. He learned that party lifestyle, and that's what he delved into, man. I get it. When all you do is when you sing for a living, I guess you could do extracurriculars that don't really matter, right? So,
But I wonder why he pat him down. I guess he had grown suspicious that maybe he was gonna set him up or something.
probably, and a lot of how do I say this? When you're mentoring a kid, a lot of it is a dominance thing, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hey, Justin, Justin Bieber is probably the last guy that would ever be wired up." But Puff Daddy's letting him know, like, yeah, I'm Big Bad Puff Daddy. I'm checking you out. That's my guess, more than actually believing Bieber was wired up. Because, quite frankly, we know Bieber wasn't wired up. So
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it'll be interesting to see, like, from a federal indictment perspective, what else kind of comes out of this, if anything.
I think they're gonna let Diddy fall, man. Racketeering charge, sex trafficking. They'll let Diddy fall, and everybody else is gonna skate. But we'll see, Todd. We'll see who's right. It's gonna come out over the next year, man.
Because if there's someone who could get their word out, he probably could
What
somehow.
they're gonna do, what they're gonna do right now. Yes, on that note, of course, he's got a great public, that would follow him through anything, and repeat whatever he's saying. But what they're going to line up now is all those people like Cassie or people after Cassie who filed lawsuits. They're going to line them up to testify against P. Diddy. You know what I mean? And maybe some stuff about the murders and the shooting that he got away with. Maybe that stuff will come up too, man. I mean, say end of the road for everybody. Eventually, you get too big for your britches. Puff Daddy was too big. It's sad too, man. He could have moved away, gone to another country, just lived a life, but he'd lose his fame, I guess.
Well, didn't he try to? Didn't he try to go to like Antigua or something? And they grounded his plane?
I don't know. Is that just that? I know he was in a few airports, but I don't know if he actually fled.
No, they said initially when he got raided, he flew to Antigua or somewhere like that. And they grounded his plane there at the
Yeah.
airport.
Well, there's nowhere to run anymore unless you're going to Russia.
I don't even think Putin would take him, though.
I don't know. Putin's a media whore too. Who knows what he'd do?
It is strange that he's inviting like all Americans who want to move to Russia if they want to, which is kind of a little bit strange. Like they're planning to do something. If any of y'all want to get out of here before we do, you can move over here.
Propaganda war. And if we believe what Tucker Carlson said about their groceries and their inflation rate, people would actually do it. But listen, you think there aren't people that absolutely believe Tucker? I'm sure there are, man. People believe anything on the news these days.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, Derek, it's always interesting talking to you about the fights and some of this legal stuff, and maybe you could tell people where they can find stuff that you're doing. I know you want to start a
Yeah,
YouTube
guys.
here
So
soon.
So I ended my crime TikTok, guys. It's over. But if you want to find it, it's at Derek Meyer Galanis. My fight game TikTok is at Derek Galanis. I put them both on Instagram, usually at Derek Galanis. And you can find my books on Amazon: Greed and Fear, The Galanis Crime Family, and Warrior of the Light: A Fighter's Journey Through the Rise of Mixed Martial Arts.
And we're also going to try to get him to do some YouTube stuff, so maybe we'll
I'm
work on that.
still trying to do that, man. I'm loading my TikTok videos, but I want to load like stuff like this onto it so people can see me talk, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, we'll work on it for sure.
Yeah.
So everybody check out Derek, and appreciate all of you checking out this episode. And you can always find me at Todd Atkins Show on YouTube. And as always, look out for the next episode. Until then, take care.